The first season of Severance was an intriguing and unique piece of television. It had a very strong sense of style set inside an office building of never-ending, brightly lit corridors and mysterious doors with a surrealist sci-fi slant. Centred around the happenings inside Lumen, a company whose aims are as mysterious as what it produces, it offers its employees the irreversible severance procedure. A procedure that will split their brains between their work self, referred to as an innie, and their lives outside of the workplace, an outie. These severed persons have no memory or recollection or even perception of their other self, creating essentially two different personalities within the same person. Therefore, the innie's entire existence is only within the walls of Lumen, while for the outie, they simply clock in and clock out without any recollection of what they did that day at work. What would compel someone to do this to themselves is one of the many questions the show asks. And what is Lumen up to that requires such an extreme dedication to secrecy, even at the sacrifice of morality, ethics, and legality? Season 1 offered plenty of mystery that left you guessing at what was behind every corner. The central innie characters begin to realise not is all as it seems, as they learn more about the outside world and the inner workings of Lumen itself. Season 1 also ended on one of the most nail-biting cliffhanger finales in recent times that in my case made me audibly yell in frustration as it cut to black at a very crucial moment. Now, a painful almost 3 years later, Season 2 is finally here. Will it live up to the excellence of that seminal first season? Well, if this first episode is anything to go by, we're off to a good start. But before we dive in, thanks for stopping by. I'm CineChap. I make monthly media reviews and analysis videos. Please consider subscribing if that sounds like your thing, and like the video if you enjoy it, but no pressure. Now, let's get to the video. So I'm just going to dive straight into the first episode of Season 2. So it starts with Mark coming up the elevator. He transforms back into his innie self and is sort of aghast and is freaking out and sort of starts running down the corridors, which is a great contrast to the beginning of Season 1. Where he's just calmly walking down the corridors off to his office. And so he's running down the corridors because he's desperate to tell Miss Casey what he's just found out about the fact that his outie's wife is her and that his outie believes that she's dead. So he's like trying to find her. She sort of went missing in the end of Season 1, but he's running towards Wellness where he saw her last and where she used to work. And it's a great sequence. It's done as like a one-hour, so it's like, done as like continuous shots. It's obviously like, different ones have been stitched together, but nonetheless looks great. Using some motion control arms as well to get some unique shots. And it's a great little sequence. And he gets to the end, he gets to Wellness, and it's been sort of bricked up and boarded up. And it's started to be painted over and the doors are gone. And it's sort of only the reception area facade that's been left at this point. So he's sort of looking around and it's kind of like, oh no. And behind him, as the camera pans around, you see a mysterious figure sort of just slant out behind a wall, just sort of look at him from behind. Sort of out of focus. I thought initially it was Milchick, but actually looking again, it looks more like someone who looks like Mark. He's sort of got the same blue badge and a similar looking suit. So don't know who that is. And they sort of disappear before Mark turns around again and heads back to his office. And when he gets back, Irving, Dylan and Hallie aren't there. So he doesn't know where they are. And instead it's 3 other people. And he's like, what the heck? And then Milchick appears with balloons with Mark's face on and says, welcome back. Classic Severance. Very bizarre. So Milchick takes him to his office because now he is the manager of the severed floor. Harmony Cobell has been dismissed. Not too surprising considering what she got up to last season. And he explains to Mark that it's been 5 months since the incident where the 4 of them conspired to whistleblow to the world how they're treated on the inside. But he's the only one who's returned. So his other 3 colleagues' outies refused to come back. And in fact, Mark's outie begged to go back to work, sort of reminding us that, the reason he even underwent the severance procedure was because his wife died. And he was sort of so distraught by that he wanted to escape that reality and have part of his day that he just doesn't have to live, basically. But of course, we now know that she's potentially alive in the form of Miss Casey. Mark's then returned back and is told to sort of work with his new colleagues. He doesn't really take to that. There's a great scene with a new character. Can't remember her name, but she's a child, and she's basically the new, I guess, assistant manager to Milchick. So there's this really weird game where they're kind of going around and saying, what's something you're thankful for, or happy about? And Mark says, when the ball comes to him, he says, I'm thankful to have made 4 new friends. And this child manager goes like, only 3. I'm not a friend. I'm I'm management basically. So, and there's this really kind of like intense stare off between them, and she does great. It's really kind of creepy and off-putting, and she's got that classic Severance management look, which is appearing really positive and open, but actually in the eyes there's a deadness. There's an element of sinisterness, and there's like, oh, there's something going on behind those eyes. Really creepy. Great job from that actress. But anyway, Mark ends up just wanting to sabotage the team because he's like, I want my old team back. So he tries to put a note in one of their pockets and it doesn't work. He gets found out immediately. He kind of freaks out. He runs back to Milchick's office, grabs the phone, tries to get hold of management. He's like, give me my team back, give them back. If you want to actually do reform, then you need to bring them all back. Anyway, he then gets sent home down the elevator. And then after an undisclosed amount of time, he comes out again. And then I think it's Dylan. Yeah, it's Dylan first, then Irving. They come out. And then Hallie comes out. Interestingly, particularly with Hallie, we don't see her like transition within the elevator, which I'll get back to in a bit, why I think that's relevant. So they're all kind of catching up and getting like, what happened? Oh my goodness. Da, da, da. And so then they're all brought together to sit in the break room and watch a video that Lumen's put together. And then we get a kind of a strange sort of 70s style claymation type infomercial style video where it's kind of dry, overly positive. But in Lumen's case, they're clearly, while they're saying, hey, we're really happy in this video that these 4 heroes came forward and told the world about the issues that were going on. And so now we're working with them and leading the reform within Lumen for any rights kind of thing. And, it's got the Lumen building itself sort of narrating it with, I think, voiced by Keanu Reeves, actually, I read. So that's quite funny. So, it's again, Lumen being like, everything's great. And don't worry, we're actually really pleased these people came forward. But really, they're going like, oh, these guys absolutely fucked everything up, you bastards. So yeah, they're told there's going to be positive changes for them, including break room, and also you can leave whenever you want, and we won't, punish you, and we don't we don't record you anymore or watch you, because in the video they play back audio from season 1 essentially, which confirms that they were being monitored entirely, and that Lumen also know about the romantic relationship between Hallie and Mark, which gets some looks from Dylan. He's like, what the hell? That went on. So, yeah. So then Milchick leaves. And, there's no mics in the break room. So, all good. So he leaves. And so then they all start discussing like, oh, what happened when you were on the outside? What happened? And so Mark tells them about his revelation about his outtie's wife actually being Miss Casey, and his outie thinks she's dead. Dylan talks about the fact he has a son and a wife, so he's desperate to see them again and to meet them and actually interact with them. Irving, he ends up tracking down his friend, his potential lover, basically, and finds out he actually has a family already and he's retired, so he's potentially never going to see him again, so he's quite distraught about that. And then also his outie was doing lots of strange paintings of a mysterious door down a dark corridor, so he's quite disturbed. And Irving's just like, I want out of here. I want to get out. I don't want to come back, which would essentially mean he's dying, because if he elects to go out and essentially quit and not return to work, then he will, essentially die. That part of his self will cease to exist. So Dylan runs after him and sort of tries to convince him, like, don't do this. What are you doing? And so they have quite a good conversation. And Dylan kind of convinces him in the end to stay and says, what would your friend want you to do? He'd want you to stay and figure this out and not just take the easy way out. And that gives a chance for Mark and Hallie to catch up and Oh, that's the other thing. Yeah, Hallie, between the four of them and between just her and Mark, lies about what she saw on the outside. So she says, "Oh, I was just in an apartment on my own watching a nature documentary. Tried to tell a gardener about what's going on in Lumen, but he didn't really believe me. He just thought I was crazy. So I tried, but nothing happened." Of course, what really happened is that she firstly found out that she's actually the daughter of the CEO at Lumen. So she's a very significant person on the outside. And that she was about to give a big speech at Lumen headquarters. So during that speech, she basically blew the whistle and was like, "Oh, we're not getting treated very well as innies, and I'm actually Hallie's innie," and etc. So she lies to Mark and to Dylan and Irving. And I think this is my theory, I think Hallie is actually her outie. And so going back to the elevator bit where she comes up and we don't see her transition, I think that's why. I think it's because she's the outie and that she's essentially working with Lumen, since she is high up in the company anyway. She's working with Lumen to essentially break apart this rebellion, to break apart these four friends, and to stop them finding out any more secrets, and to essentially just break them, either get them to quit, never come back and disappear, or break them to their will so that they do what they want. So I think that's going to play a key thing. And Mark sort of talks to Hallie as well at this point and says, I want to find Miss Casey. I want to find the truth for my outie, really. Me and Miss Casey never had a thing. Obviously, my outie was potentially married to her. So, me and you, we're still okay romantically, as it were. But yeah, I think there's something off with Hallie. And so then, the episode ends with them going back to work, seemingly like, everything's good. I don't think it is. But, that's classic Severance. So I think, overall, I think the episode is pretty strong. I think, yes, in some ways, it does sort of set things back a little bit in terms of where the characters were in season one. The status quo is sort of somewhat restored and they've got a few more rights and privileges that they didn't have before, including pineapple bobbing. Sure. Weird Severance stuff. Yeah, whilst it does kind of reset things a bit, I do think where the characters are, especially Mark, is in a very different place. Like they're much more resistant to Lumen's tactics. And I think they are not going to just sort of roll over as they did before. They know a lot more. They know there's something going on inside these walls. And certainly whilst Mark doesn't know when Miss Casey is, that's going to be driving him forward. So there was one more point I wanted to talk about, which was Milchick takes Dylan aside and sort of shows him that there's development plans to build a visitor's room. So he would be able to visit his outie's wife and child. They'd be able to come visit him and he'd be able to interact with them, which is kind of what he wants. So, that's something that's driving him. And so Milchick's kind of going like, look, we're planning this. It'd be a shame for your colleagues to kind of resent you. So let's keep this between us. And again, I think this is Lumen's plan, is to divide and conquer these four. So I think Hallie's working with that. Milchick's obviously going to keep, psychologically messing with them and what have you. So I do think that's the kind of overall plan from Lumen. So that just about wraps it all up. As you can probably tell, this is a different style video than the ones I've been doing previously. This is unscripted. So let me know if you liked it. Leave a like if you did. Or let me know in the comments if you've got any positive feedback or any other kind. I welcome it all. So have you seen this first episode of season 2 of Severance? Are you a fan of the first season? I really loved the first season, so I'm excited to see where this one goes. And do you have any theories? I'd be interested to hear your thoughts and theories below, and perhaps discuss in the comments where you think this season will go. So I think all that's left to say is subscribe to CineChap for more media reviews and analysis coming every month. That's all for today. I'll see you in the next video.